Welcome back, everybody. Take a break with Stephen Shamus.
Good to see you, my friend. We are now past the 100 milestone.
It's all downhill from here.
I know. I wonder what's the next anniversary? 150?
150? Yeah, 125 seems too soon.
Yeah, 150 is another year.
That's a big one. It's a big one.
What do you got going on in the background there?
What don't I have?
Fuerza Secreta. What is
that?
What is that? Star Wars.
Star Wars. It's a special edition giveaway for Saberitas. I think it's Mexico, some kind of snack cake or something.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty neat.
The guy was selling. I'm not gonna tell anybody where I got them because I don't want to steal them all. But the guy was selling for $5 each, and I was like, "Wow, yeah, I'll take one." Yeah,
that is a deal.
I'll never find those. I could probably buy them for $5. All the rest of them, bring them to the East Coast and clean up. But
yeah, you could probably double your money. You could double your money.
100%, $10. Yeah, totally.
All right, what do we got today, Alex?
More fun stuff, just as ever. We're going to talk a little zombie Scarlet Witch.
Vision, we need your help. Get us out of here.
Because why not? We love Scarlet Witch. We're going to talk about Harley Quinn's first appearance, but not the one you're thinking of. We're going to just rehash some Michael Turner stuff, one of the best cover artists to ever grace us. And then we're going to round it out with a little Hulk She-Hulk team up.
Hulk lost. Hate big city.
Hey, she's tall, green, and gorgeous, huh, Hulkster? Remind you of any other liberated lady you know?
Jennifer?
On the button, cousin. No.
Yeah, so I think we're starting to see some of these TV shows or films are starting to project some stuff out. I think Turner is also starting to hit like that McFarlane kind of status where people are like collecting all of his covers, and you're starting to see them really move upwards, especially the low pop ones. Yeah. So it's interesting. Like I've noticed an uptick on them. These ones we're going to talk about today, you're going to be pretty surprised about because some of them have very high pops or, or I know they're printed in mass quantities. I know
especially his covers. They didn't hire him and pay him to do lame covers for lame series.
Right. All right. So what are we starting off with today, Alex?
Let's talk a little zombie Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, I think there's some rumors, and you could talk about the zombie witch appearing in the film.
The Marvel Zombies phenomena, if you will, like with the What If cartoon series and the multiverse of madness stuff, anything is possible. Anything, and that with Scarlet Witch, and we've seen a lot more Doctor Strange. Like, oh, there's a negative Doctor Strange, there's a bad one, and he's being captured. I think we have yet to really see what Scarlet Witch's role is going to be in the movie. They're giving you very little. So
yeah, so the rumor is that it's going to be the zombie one. So the first appearance of the zombie Scarlet Witch is Marvel Zombies Resurrection #2. From November of 2020, the cover variant that everybody wants is the Greg Land Scarlet Witch variant cover. There's only 8 9.8 blue labels, but those are $25 to $30 raw. So I would probably tell you that if you did have one of the 9/8, it's probably a $250 to $300 book. They did print a lot of copies of the Marvel Zombie books. Those books were ordered by.
This was not old. This is less than a year old.
Right.
These are still in. You can probably still go to shops maybe and find them.
Yeah, find them. Yeah, and then the second one that everyone's looking for is the Darkhold Omega #1 from March of 2022. So that just recently came out. Yeah, is the Zombie Scarlet Witch variant. Because it only came out in March, it's only April right now. There's 2 9.8s, and that book is already $15 to $20 raw.
Wow.
So it feels like there's, the book is only a month old or so, and there's already some interest in it. So again, it's a book to keep an eye on for that.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay.
More Scarlet
So
Witch.
what do we got next? Yeah. What do we got next, Alex?
Batman. Almost got him.
Yeah. So this is an interesting book. It predates Harley Quinn first appearance in comic books. These books have really started to creep up in pricing. They are impossible to get in high grade.
Yes.
You can find them. You can find them. You can't find them in very high conditions.
Yeah.
You'll talk a little bit about how you were able to get one of these things. It's called Batman Almost Got Him. It's from Western Publishing in 1993. I don't even know what Western Publishing is. So why don't you talk about the book itself and how you were able to get it? And was it the original creative team also?
Yeah. There was, I mean, Paul Dini's art is in it. Mike DiCarlo's in it. It's essentially a book and tape. I mean, that's my bread and butters. I have a bunch of those that, you'll see when you see the image, you'll notice it right away what it looks like. In the mid 90s, right before CDs really were like a mass thing, they were still doing like book and records, book and tapes, before the internet was bigger and downloads and MP3s. But this came with a tape. It was a tape and a book, and the book is from an episode of Batman the Animated Series. It's just in book form and in tape form. And funny enough, that this book is based on probably, I think it's the number 2 highest rated episode of Batman the Animated Series. So it's like, it's a fantastic episode. It's all the villains, they're playing cards, they're recounting how they almost got Batman, and it's a printed item that predates Batman Adventures 12. So it's first printed Harley Quinn in print.
Yeah. So for sure. Yeah, I see it's Paul Dini and Jack Harris story with Al Bigley and Mike DiCarlo art. It's Western Publishing 93. There's only 2 9.8s. A 9.6 recently sold for $630.
Ooh.
And they sell for about $100 raw. So like I said, you can find them raw for about $100, and you can find them. Yeah. It's finding them in the top grade that's very, very difficult to do.
Go to your used bookstore, your Goodwill, and go to the kids section and just start flipping.
Yeah. All right. Alex's pick of the week. What do you got? Is it your Star Wars banner in the back?
I'm not going to talk about my Star Wars banner because that's too new. But I'm going to keep the book and tape thing rolling. And we've talked about this in the past. But there's a lot of superhero books and stuff like that out there that they're not going to be easy to find. These aren't easy to find to begin with. It's not because it's Harley Quinn's first appearance. These are kids. These are children's books. Like, Batman the Animated Series specifically was I don't want to say a timeless cartoon, but a lot of non-children watched Batman the Animated Series. But all the stuff is geared towards kids. You're not going to find these books in many places. So like I have a couple of Tiny Toons ones. There's anything from that era, this early 90s, people were collecting toys and keeping them in packages, but not ephemeral, not paper products, not like this strange stuff. So finding any of this stuff in good condition, and CGC will slab them. I mean, you might not be able to give them a stack of books and just be like, hey, do all these, but they will. I mean, to preserve them or something from your childhood. So if you have them,
they came in clamshell.
They came in clamshells. Right? Yeah. So I mean, if there's a couple still out there sealed, I mean, I'll go halvesies with somebody. I'll buy the tape. You can take the book. I don't really need the book, but they're not hard. They're not easy to find. None of this stuff's going to be easy to find. That's going to get worse and worse.
Got it. Okay, so what do we got next, Alex?
Yeah, let's talk a little Michael Turner and just the amazing art that he produced, while he was around.
Right, I believe it's been about 13 or 14 years since Michael passed. He was one of the most delightful guests you could get at a show. He would literally sign for hours and hours, any book, any amount, any whatever. If you bought a Michael Turner book, he would sign it. He would sit there and he would sign it for you. Never complained, never had a bad word, never had anything, was just delightful. What you're seeing again, and maybe it's again, now those baby boomers are now older, have more disposable income, and these are the kind of books that they're going back to buying. Interestingly enough, the pops are not very low, but the prices are very high. It is interesting. That doesn't happen very often. You see it. You saw it with McFarlane. You saw it with Jim Lee, and it feels like people are sort of elevating Michael to that category now of those particular covers. So let's go through a few books in particular that I wanted to reach out on today that were really surprising to me. And not like in any particular order, but there's just different series that I want to look at. So the first one is Identity Crisis #1, and that was from August of 2004. And actually, before we get started, I think Mark Silvestri, I think, had the biggest influence on Michael and his artwork. I don't know if there's anything else that you want. I mean, you could see the influence there.
Totally.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that before we kind of dive
I just
into it?
like you said, he was an extremely nice man, and as a cover artist, I mean, I think this is the first time I had ever seen, we'll talk Identity Crisis, but like after those came out, DC directed an Identity Crisis toy line, and it was all based on his art, not the inside, but his cover art. And it was just awesome to see toys with his images and, based off his art. And, I think one of the first like artists, like popular artists that people outside of the industry really could see and notice.
Right, you could take notice of it for sure, for sure. Okay, so Identity Crisis #1, August of 2004. They printed a lot of copies of this book.
A lot of
copies of this book. This was like a book that you had cases and cases and cases
Yes.
of in the shop. No question about it. There are 326 blue label and 22 gold labels, and the gold labels are probably Michael, of course. Death of Sue Dilmy. It's Brad Meltzer, believe it or not. That was Brad Meltzer. That's very early.
First comic, first big comic.
Right. Yeah. And then Turner and Steigerwald. And Steigerwald, obviously always got a lot of credit for bringing Mike's art to life with the coloring of it. I mean, he and Michael were like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
Totally. That book is over $1,300 now in a 9.8. It's hard to believe at that kind of a print run.
Yeah. It's a big, huge. Yeah.
Right. And then you have the black and white retailer incentive edition sketch cover. There are 69 blue labels. There are 16 gold labels. Most of them probably signed by Michael. Yeah. Those are about $250 in a blue label. And then there's a second print negative sketch. It was something that Michael, I think, started doing, and nobody else really knew that at the time. He would flip the negative from white to black. Those are pretty cool.
I like it.
For some reason, they don't sell for that much money. There are 71 blue label 9.8s. There's 10 gold label 9.8s, and that's about a $50 to $75 book in 9.8. So it's definitely not as expensive. The third print is not a Turner cover. The fourth print is 10 9.8s. And that's about a $10 to $15 raw book. The next book I want to talk about is World War Hulk #1. And we've talked about World War Hulk because we've just talked about World War Hulk in relation to the film series, not in relation to the comic books as it relates to Michael. But there was an Aspen cover, and it's a pretty dynamic cover. And it's a Greg Pak story, which we've talked about before, because that's trickled over into the film series.
Yes.
Came out in August of 2007. 340 blue label 9.8s, 339 gold label 9.8s. There's actually 3 9.9s, and that's a $600 book today. So even that one has sort of steadily been increasing, Alex. And then you could talk a little bit about the Superman Batman series. I remember when this series first came out, it was like, okay, we're going to give you Superman and Batman. And it was definitely a lot of hype around it. They printed a lot of copies of these books.
Yeah, definitely.
And people bought a lot of the copies. And at that time, Aspen was doing their own store variants. And they were very, very exciting because they're very colorful. They really, really popped.
It was one of the first store variants, like studio store variants. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of I think that was, if I remember correctly, I think at the time Dan DiDio was publisher. And I think he wanted Michael to do a whole series of covers for DC. And part of the arrangement was, if we do the covers for you, we want to get some of our own personal store exclusives, right? And I think that's where it all originated. So, so again, you got the Superman, Batman. Interestingly enough, they did a reprint from 2004 of the original Superman, Batman. I don't know why they chose that particular book. Okay, so Alex, so they reprinted that for San Diego 2017. Why don't you talk a little bit about Superman Batman #8 and why they reprinted that for 2017?
Yeah, it was a big book. I mean, it was a big book because it was a new Supergirl, it was new Kara Zor-El. I mean, it had been a while since we'd seen Supergirl, since like the late 90s. But this was a big book. It was a brand new series. It was Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness, and then it was Michael Turner on the second run with the first appearance of Supergirl. So this was a big book.
Yeah, so that's a good reason. They made 3 versions, A, B, and C. It's very clear from the label holders. On version A, there are 71 blue label and 22 gold label. Those are $670. Version B, there are 64 blue label and 22 gold label. Those are about $380. And then there's version C, which is the negative, which is the virgin cover. 313 blue label, 35 gold label 9.8s. There's actually 7 9.9s and 1 10.0, and those are $600 in 9.8, Alex. The version ones are very, very hot.
Yes. Yeah.
Very, very hot. Yeah. Okay, good. And then the next book, which we've talked about too, as part of the Red Hulk that we've talked about in the past, but again, is the Hulk #1 from Wizard World LA, March 2008. I did that book. Thank you very much. March 2008. I think they originally used that art as a green Hulk cover, and I think Peter just recolored it as red. With the
it's the same color, little changes,
right?
Yeah, little tiny changes.
Yeah, I think they changed the eyes, and I think they changed a few other things, right?
Some hair. I think they added a little grayness.
Yeah. So that's Peter's magic. Hulk #1, Wizard World LA, March 2008. 690 blue label 9.8s, 124 gold label 9.8s. Michael was at the show. He was signing away. There's actually one 9.9, and that's a $500 book.
How many you got left? You have a box sitting in your apartment? No,
I wish we threw that stuff out in dumpsters.
Oh boy,
we threw so much stuff out. You know which one is the worst one? Is the Young Avengers #1 sketch cover. The Wizard World LA edition. We threw away we threw away boxes and boxes.
Oh my gosh.
Dumpster. They're in the dumpster and they're in the landfill.
I wonder if you didn't, would they still be worth what they're worth? Maybe not. You helped it. You helped the price.
Maybe. All right. The next ones are interesting. The next two are going to be fascinating to you because these are not your typical valuable books, Alex.
Right.
So Executive Assistant Iris, Volume 4, number 3. You're going to have to explain this one to me. February of 2014, the Arizona Comic-Con edition. There's 3 blue label, 0 gold labels. The last one sold for $460. They're very expensive, even raw condition.
Wow. Yeah.
Is there something in particular, or it's just one of those just rare Turner books? And that's
when you were doing the research, do you remember this book? I mean, it's not a book. No, this is a rare book. It is not something that comes up. They did not make a lot of these. Even if these were given out for free at the show, I mean, how many people probably Executive Assistant Iris? That's not a book people are collecting. So it's just extremely hard to find. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that book is crazy. And then the other one, this one makes more sense. The first appearance of Fathom. Now that's always had a particular place, but that's been moving upwards. Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about the character? That was Michael's first character.
Yeah, and I think you've just been seeing, Aspen's still chugging along. They're still making Fathom books, and I think this is one of those things where after Witchblade and stuff like that this was something that was going to be some type of TV show, animated movie or something, and it's probably not gone in that realm. But it's a fan favorite. Just a big fan.
Yeah.
Favorite.
So Fathom preview special #1 from 1998. It's a very, very tough book to find in high grade. First appearance of Fathom. It's got a Fathom pinup also by Mark Silvestri. It's a Turner story. Turner and Joe Weems cover and art. There are 54 blue labels. Surprisingly, there's only 1 gold label. You would think that Michael would have signed a lot more of those copies of that book.
Just anybody else that worked on the book too. Yeah.
Right. And those are $450 today, Alex, in 9.8.
Yeah.
Right. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I'd get a Mark Silvestri cover signed on that.
So I would tell you, I would start looking for other Turner covers. I think you're going to start to see what happened with the McFarlane and Jim Lee covers. The same thing.
I agree. Just going to start taking off.
All right. Yeah. So what are we closing out with today, Alex?
A little family Hulk love. She-Hulk and Hulk first time they teamed up.
Yeah. So obviously the TV show is coming. This particular issue has exploded in value.
Yeah, of course.
So the TV show is coming. Ruffalo's in the show with Tatiana. So we already know he's in the show. We don't know to what degree, but that's spurred this sort of renaissance of like people looking for anything, right? To tie the
yeah. Give them something. Give them a crumb. This is one of the crumbs.
Right. So this book is from 83, Alex. So it's 40 years old already at this point. I mean, it's
38
hard to believe.
minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hulk 282, April of 1983, first team up with She-Hulk. There's actually 45 9.8s and 45 9.6s. So for a 40-year-old book, that's a decent pop.
And the funny part about the story of this book is essentially Hulk is like, and Bruce Banner are like, oh, we can help you. And she's like, no. I like being She-Hulk. It's not, I'm not a monster. I'm not running away. And I think you're going to see a lot of that in the TV show. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are picking this up.
Yeah. So it's a $600 book now.
Yeah.
She-Hulk, Iron Man, and leader appearances, Avengers cameo. It's a Bill Mantlo story with Sal Buscema and Joe Sinnott art, with an Al Milgrom and Joe Sinnott cover. And there's a very, very, very rare Canadian price variant, which are impossible to find.
Yes.
I know they're very, very hard to find. All right, that does it for another episode. We thank you for joining us. We are now past the anniversary edition, and we thank everybody for joining us. And we'll see everybody next week. Same bat time.
Same bat channel. Thanks, guys.